welcome to Higginsanity. I'm your host, Jason Higgins.
I'm your co-host, Dan Slat.
And welcome to another episode of Higginsanity Podcast and live stream. I hope all of you have been doing well. My personal life kind of hit a downfall the other day when I got a notification. Dan, you know what that notification was?
What's that?
That notification had to do with the no other Joe Burrow. And he had a calf strain injury, Better than what people were trying to say on Twitter. Everybody was saying he tore his Achilles, he could have tore his ACL, yada, yada, yada. I watched the clip over and over again. I was thinking it was definitely with the calf, and I know that the Achilles can, I was talking to one of my teammates Day, he had torn his Achilles, and I get you feel that pain up in your calf. But I just feel like on that play and what they were showing, it looked like more of a cramp or like a calf strain injury, and that's what it became. But he's going to be out several weeks, is what it's saying. Do I think he'll be back week one? I'm not sure. Either way, we're playing the Browns, and for some reason, we play like doggy doo-doo against the Browns. So whether Joe Burrow's playing or not against the Browns, for some reason we play like a middle school team. But I'm hoping. I would say, I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't want to rush him back too soon, but it's Joe Burrow. He's never had a normal offseason since he's been in the NFL. He had COVID the one year. He gets his appendix taken out last year during offseason. Now let's just pull out a calf strain injury this summer. And what was hilarious, I saw on Twitter, it had a meme and it said, as soon as Joe Burrow got the NFL script for the same offseason 3 years in a row.
I don't know. We'll see. The sad thing is, I feel like that kid is just destined to get some sort of injury every season. And it's just sad because, I like him as a player. I like him as a personality. I mean, you look more like Gardner Minshew than anybody, but, no, I just want that dude to be able to play a full season and just like a full off season, full season, and just go and play and see what he's actually made of. Like everybody knows he's got talent at this point. Like there's no question in that. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of almost like, and I hope it doesn't get to this. It's kind of almost like Andrew Luck. Kid had talent, played well, a beast, tough kid, but then eventually just got beat to hell so much that he had to retire. And you don't want to see another talented young player have that happen to him.
No, you're right. I have a lot of faith in this year's O line, especially with stealing Orlando Brown Jr. from the Chiefs. I was super happy about that pickup. But having that full season under your belt with Teddy and Collins and those new O line that we got last year, I think is going to make a big difference this year. And the fact that you can take 9 sacks in a playoff game and still win the game and still be out there playing like he did. Like, I know how I'd be if I got sacked by, the Tennessee Titans 9 times in a game. Like, I wouldn't have been out there for the 9th time. I would have been out of it the 3rd sack. And so I think this year's going to be, hopefully. I mean, that's the thing is he hasn't had a full off season and a full season yet.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
had he's had 2 full healthy regular seasons. That first year he went down and didn't have a full season. But you're
right,
right,
right.
he hasn't had a full off-season training camp and a regular season.
But I've obviously never played the position, but not only offensive linemen, you hear them talking about how they're a unit. It's as kind of maybe funny as it sounds, they're kind of like, the Spartan shield wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like if once you're a team and that's what you do and you know everybody and you
Mm-hmm.
form that wall around that quarterback, And yes, he was healthy for 2 seasons, but he never like I feel like he never felt comfortable.
Mhm.
And now if he's got that, you know, he's played with them, they're comfortable, they know their stuff, they can all play together as one unit. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, you all know I'm a Packers fan. I'm gonna root for them. But if the Bengals went and did it, I'm not gonna be angry about it.
Yeah, I can't
Like
imagine Joe Burrow having one full extra second for Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon to get open. Just one extra second because that makes I mean that like if you go back to the Super Bowl, I mean if he had one extra second against Aaron Donald, if he had one extra second in that last play, you saw Jamar Chase, he was wide open, but unfortunately, it is what it is, and I would say the O line is a very very important position because if you don't, I mean, look at Tua from the Dolphins, last
but
year.
look at Tom Brady. I mean, his entire career at the Patriots always had a crazy good O line.
Yep, you're right.
Never got hit, never had to run. He could just stand up tall, read his reads, make his throws.
Yep,
And I like he never like there's
same
he
for the
never got
Bucks.
hit. He never got beat up.
Hmm. That's the truth. And I feel like Peyton Manning was the same way. I mean, he had a great O line. When you can sit behind Saturday for most of your career, I mean,
Yep.
you're set. I mean, that's the thing is I'm hoping with I don't know, how's the Jets O line? I haven't. I think is that the one area that they're weak in. I know their defense is strong. They got a decent wide receiver core. I mean, I
I
would
mean,
say
their wide
above.
receivers, they're good at wide receivers.
Yeah.
And
When I say decent, I mean like a
yeah,
good, like what
and
six.
if they're looking at trying to get Delvin Cook,
Yeah,
if the Jets get Delvin Cook, then they could
fingers
be a
crossed.
fucking team.
Yeah,
Like they could be the team.
I'm really banking on it because
Um,
I was in a fantasy league draft last night, and I went wide receivers first for the first time in a minute, and I snagged Dobbins and Dalvin Cook, so I'm really banking on Cook getting signed by the Jets. I mean, it sounds like it's they're like very very close. It's like it's almost on paper. It's just not there yet.
I'm hoping some of these running back deals get done before next Saturday.
I know, like Zeke and yeah, I
We got
it's
the draft coming up,
crazy.
and I'm like, I don't, I don't want to make all these decisions before they do.
Yeah, and it just that blows my mind. Like guys like Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, guys that are difference makers, game changers, guys that I don't I get it, but it's just the way it is. I guess if like if you it almost makes sense if you're a running back to not get drafted in the first round because you're able to get that second contract so much quicker and get paid. Whereas if you're a first round pick, it's like 5-6 years before you can get a new contract. And at that time, sometimes with running backs, depending on how much you get hit, your injuries. I mean, look
I
at Todd Gurley. I mean, that's just so weird. Like he was a top tier running back those couple years, and then boom, all of a sudden he's out of the league.
That's what I was gonna say. Do you think it's? I mean, if you were a running back or if you were NFL team, like how would you want to handle that? Because obviously, running backs, just like any other position, want to get paid,
Mm-hmm.
but because of their high rate of injury and their lack of um um, why can't I think of the word? Longevity. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Their lack of longevity in the league. Do you think they're worth re-signing for high dollar deals because their best years might be just being signed in like 1 or 2 years in the league, just being a young kid who's just running, they think they need a longer
Mm-hmm.
contract? Or do you think it's going to move to you get drafted, you get signed, and then you bounce around? And because all these, at this point, veterans, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Delvin Cook, they seem every offseason they're just looking to bounce around for the next hot 1 year deal. Is that going to be the new standard?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just so weird because like I see both sides of it. Like as a player, I'm taking that beating. I've taken that beating for 3, 4, 5 years. I've put points on the board. I've put people in the stands. If I'm a top tier running back like Saquon Barkley, like Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, I can see why I would want to get paid. Like I've put that effort. I've put I'm taking a lot of beating, and but then I look at it on the owner standpoint is if my running, like the New York Giants situation, if my quarterback and my running back are both up for a big contract and I got to franchise tag one and pay the other, if my quarterback has been a higher level tier QB, has not really had those injury concerns and things of that nature, then I'm going to lean towards paying my quarterback because the chances are he's going to be around he's going to have a longer prime.
Right.
He's going to be around more, and the chances of him being injured are less likely than the running back. But then, like I said, it's if I'm also the owner, I would draft me personally a running back that's a multi down back or a multi caliber that can receive and run
Yes.
to where
Yes. A
I'm
receiving back.
yeah, to where I'm not that way if he can be involved in every play, but he's not getting the ball handed off every single play. He's not
Yeah.
to that nature to where there's less chances I feel like of him being beaten down as much because there's a difference between getting hit by I think a safety or a cornerback than a defensive end or a defensive lineman. In a
Yeah.
way, I feel like if you're getting
Well,
hit by
definitely not necessarily, you know, getting hit harder or worse, but getting hit in different parts of your body.
yes,
Like if
yes,
you're getting hit by a secondary player, you're usually going to get hit high, right?
yes, yes.
You're going to be able to prepare for a little bit. The running back's going to dip down. But if you're getting hit by a linebacker or a lineman, it's all legs, knees. I mean, obviously, sometimes linemen, drop back and or linebackers drop back in coverage and all that.
Yeah.
But you get the point I'm trying
You're
to
in the
make is it's a
trenches.
lot more leg damage, a
Yeah.
lot more knee damage, a lot more you're not ready for it. They're coming from the side,
Yeah.
or they're rolling into your foot or
Yeah,
something like
rolling
that.
over. You guys
Right.
collide with each other.
You're less prepared for the hit and where it's coming from.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're stuck. It's almost like you're stuck at a stalemate because you
So
you,
if
you
you
could
were
screw
an owner,
yourself.
so obviously, this is all, rainbows and wishes and all that stuff. But if you're an owner and you could, would you draft a Saquon Barkley and pay him more for his first 3 years, or wait to see what he does and then pay him more?
Um,
Does that make sense? You get what I'm
yeah,
asking? Because it's just they're young, they're fresh, they're going, It
yeah,
doesn't have to be Saquon Barkley, but just a player like him where he's got
yeah,
so much
yeah.
talent in his.
See, me as an owner, I would wait until I would wait until the second round, and if there's a top tier first round running back, and I'm like the 33rd pick, so I'm like one of the first couple picks, 33rd, 34, couple picks in that second round. He's really a first round running back, but I waited until the second round, and then I'm able to offer that contract to him quicker if he pays out to the standard that I think he's going to be. That's how I personally would go about it in the draft room because then I could pay him, but I also don't run that risk to where if it doesn't pay off, I'm not having to wait these amount of years to see what decision am I going to make. Plus
And
then
then
for
you have less drama from the player being like, I want to trade. I either want a paycheck or I want to trade or I want a paycheck. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Would you so let me ask you this. I saw a video of like the Jim Irsay, Jonathan Taylor
Oh yeah.
situation going
Yeah.
on Twitter, and then I see a video of Jim Irsay like handing $2,000 to some random fan. on the sidelines, and it's like, don't let JT's agent see this. Um, I know not last year. I know Jonathan Taylor had injuries last year and whatnot. He didn't. I don't think he even reached 1,000 yards rushing because he was.
No, I think he only played like 11 games or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. But the year before, he was unstoppable.
He's been pretty consistent up
Yeah,
until last year. Yeah.
yeah. So if you were Jim Irsay and it's Jonathan Taylor. But I want to go down to the few running backs. We'll go down to the few running backs. But I thought I'd start off with Jonathan Taylor. If you're in the Colts franchise, what would you do with Jonathan Taylor's situation?
See, this is where legality and all that stuff, I don't know if it could work, but I would want to be like, look, we'll bump up your salary 500 grand this season. Prove it that you're healthy and you can produce, or we'll trade you. Like, we'll give you a little bonus. Work hard for us. If you are successful, let's sign a new contract. If you're not, okay, fine. Like, it's almost that kind of give and take a little bit, which I don't think you can do. But I wish, I think it could honestly work out a little better in trades and things like that if owners could do that type of thing. Be like, look, all right, stick with us. We've got a good team. Here's a bump for 1 year, sign the contract, and then we'll talk next year, or say, hey, if you want to trade, sign that line. You get an extra this year, and then next year you're traded.
I would do the same thing with JT, just because of his injuries last year and the type of injuries he did have.
Right, because
And
the
plus,
player's always going to say, I'm 100%, but then am I going to put this fat paycheck in his pocket if he's not 100% and you can't see it until you're weeks into the season?
Yeah. And plus,
Yeah.
the Colts O-line was awful last year. And I know this because I'm a Bengals fan, so I've had plenty of years of watching a terrible O-line. And so when I'm able to see that resemblance of that, I'm like, no, that's a terrible O-line. So until they get that solved, which, I know they have Quentin Nelson, and I believe they answered some of that with the draft. But again, you gotta see how that comes about. You gotta see how that comes to play. And so I would do the same thing with JT this year with what you were saying, if that was plausible, if that's something that we could do just because of that situation.
Yeah. And too, from JT's perspective, you're like, we had a terrible O-line last year. Why do I want to stay here and get, risk my career further? If I get injured again, then I've been injured back-to-back seasons, haven't played complete seasons, and so now I'm an injury-prone player that can't get signed anywhere.
You're out. It's
Yeah.
It's just so weird because it's just like
you can't win.
Yeah.
You can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Josh Jacobs, what would you? Josh Jacobs. Me personally, I would pay him. One, because he's Josh Jacobs for Las Vegas.
Okay.
Me personally, I'd pay Josh Jacobs. One, this is my reasoning. Dude, me personally, on my fantasy football team, this guy has led me to multiple championships these last few years. Obviously, last year with the Bengals-Bills game and how that brought up, obviously that was an issue. But Josh Jacobs has constantly put on for that team. And the fact that there's no Darren Waller anymore, he's now on the Giants. You have Jimmy G now that's on the Raiders, and this is my feeling on Jimmy G. I think he's a solid quarterback when healthy. I think he makes good football decisions. He's not going to be flashy like he's not flashy like Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to run it like Justin Fields, but he makes good decisions. But the thing is with Jimmy G is he's never healthy. You can never count on him.
I feel like he's very much like Tony Romo.
I could see that.
He's very much has flashy moments, kind of a pretty boy, makes good plays, runs when he has to.
Much better.
But like he's not. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely gets all the females. You can tell. When I remember one night he was at an NBA game, and you should have seen all the females. He was him and George Kittle and another guy. I think it was Debo maybe. It was another guy that was at the game. And no one was getting pictures with Kittle and anybody else. They were just wanting pictures with Jimmy G. But
Yeah, yeah.
understandable.
Even though, like, for me, I'd rather get a picture with George Kittle.
George Kittle. Yeah, because he's a stud.
Yeah.
Stud type.
he's a
Stud type.
beast. Like,
Yeah. And the hairstyles, he's always rocking, different hairstyles. So you always can go with that. But I think with all that being said though, when you don't have a quarterback that's consistently healthy now, you don't have a tight end anymore. Yes, you have Devontae Adams, but past that, I mean, you have Crosby on the defensive side. But past that, you got to put the money towards Josh Jacobs because offensively, if Jimmy G goes down, and most likely he will, I hate to say it, and I wish Jimmy G would play a full season because I would love to see what he would do with 16 games. I would love to see what his stat line would be and what he would do. But when you don't have a quarterback, and that's the thing is you don't have a quarterback that can play 16 games. Josh Jacobs has played 16 games numerous times.
Yeah.
That's the difference is Josh Jacobs has been consistent, and that's why I would treat him differently than I would than a couple of the other running back situations.
And that's funny because, everybody says a quarterback is the most important position on any team, right? The quarterback. And that can range from being the best player on the team or being the most consistent or just staying healthy because you can have your supporting cast and Jimmy G can't stay healthy. So he's never going to be the most important player on whatever team he's on until he can prove that he can stay healthy and play a full season.
Yes.
And so until he does that, he's always going to be second, third, fourth best player on that team.
Yeah, because if you looked at the 49ers last year, I mean, they added Christian McCaffrey to an already loaded weapon team because, again, like you said, Jimmy G is not the number one on that team. And then when you go down and you have Brock Purdy, boom.
Yep. As soon as Caffrey was signed to that team, he was the number one player on that team. Hands down, no questions. He was the number one player. Like, if anybody argues that, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you know what I mean?
100.
But Jimmy G couldn't stay healthy because even if you're a Christian McCaffrey, you still need to have that double threat. You still need to have a decent quarterback. You're in the NFL.
Yeah. 150%. So what about Dalvin Cook? If you were the Vikings, what would you do with the Dalvin Cook situation?
I mean, if I was the Vikings, I would have wanted him to stay. I think it kind of falls into the same thing. You've got a decent quarterback. I'm personally not a fan of him, and not just because he plays for the Vikings. I just think he's very up and down. So, like, you have that support of Dalvin Cook. So I would want him to stay and have the 1-2 punch. But I think at this point, it's been going on for so long. Move on. Is it going to be a positive or a negative once the season starts if Dalvin Cook's on your team or not? Yeah. And I think at this point, it's going to be a negative. And I think if you're the Jets, you're doing everything in your power to get him because they've got the wide receiver power. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He if nothing else, if you don't like him, he's a smart player. He doesn't make mistakes. And then if you throw Dalvin Cook in there, so.
No, I feel the same way. If the Dalvin Cook situation, if this was just like starting this year, I would have paid Dalvin Cook. If this was just this year starting off or whatever the case may be, and this hadn't been an ongoing issue, then I would look to pay him just because when you have Justin Jefferson on your side, and I'm thinking as a safety or defensive back, when you have a guy like Dalvin Cook, you don't know if they're running the ball or if they're passing. When you have a guy back there that can hurt you just as much as Justin. I don't want to say just as much because Justin Jefferson, But
but like you mentioned earlier, he's a two-way running back. He can catch, he can
yes,
run, he can run up the middle, he can go out in the flat, he can be a slot receiver if you need him to. So that's where he's so multifaceted and so valuable.
yeah, and and personally, I think if the Jets do get Dalvin Cook, which I really think they will, I think at that point the Patriots do sign Zeke Elliott because they have to do something at this point because I think they lost out on DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like they had an opportunity to get DeAndre Hopkins and because their wide receiver core is nada, is not existent. And
Yeah.
at running back, I get you have Stevenson, who's a good running back, decent running back. But when you can get Zeke Elliott on your team as well, I would go get Zeke. Just because at this point, if you now get the Jets with Rodgers, Cook, you got, Chris Olive, you got, Lazard, you got all these guys on the Jets. You got obviously Allen and Diggs with the Bills, and then you have the Dolphins with Tua and Tyreek. You have to do something because Mac Jones ain't gonna be the savior for the. He's not Tom Brady. He's not even
Right.
close. He's not
He's
gonna.
what we were just talking about. He just needs to be a consistent player that can stay healthy.
Yes.
And if you can build around him, then you can have a successful team.
Yes.
My question is, how would you use Zeke Elliott? Would you use him as an every down back, or would you use him as a, third down short yardage back? Has
I
he proven that he can stay healthy for a full season?
That's the thing is I would use him as that third down shortage back with having Stevenson because Zeke's very good. I think he's one of the best running backs at getting those short yards or short yardage gainage or getting that certain amount of yardage. And to be honest, if I'm at that goal line, I'm putting the ball in Zeke's hands because 9 times out of 10, he's going to get the ball across the goal line. And I think
He's the
if,
quintessential frustrating fantasy football running back
yes,
because you never know when to start him because you don't know how many goal line half yard runs he's going to
Miles
get, score a
Sanders.
touchdown.
Miles Sanders. Might be different this year since he's not on Philly, but that was a constant with Miles Sanders. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think they have to do something because if I think honestly, if they would have got DeAndre Hopkins, he can make a quarterback look good because he can do things at wide receiver that you just throw the ball up. Like he's one of those wide receivers like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I'm going to throw Lazard out there. I'm going to throw, Odell Beckham Jr., out there, Cooper Kupp, all these guys that can do those one-handed, over-the-top, Randy
Yeah.
Moss type deals makes a quarterback
Flat,
look better
talented,
than
yeah.
they.
Talented, have a connection, and and you can tell in practice, they're like, hey, go off this guy and just see if you can make a play, and then it shows up in the games. Like, just,
Like seeing the
yeah.
videos of AJ Brown in the offseason doing like his crazy it's just incredible some of the stuff that they do. It's just
And it's funny, sometimes people be like, why would you practice the one hand catch? Why would you practice that? That's not how you actually should play the game. But it's like, that is the game.
yeah.
You never know what position you're going to be in, no matter how many times you practice the perfect safe throw that you can put your hands in a triangle and the ball goes in it. It doesn't happen like that, most of the time. Most of the time, it's fucked up. And you
Yeah.
have to make some weird throw. Your body's contorted. You have one hand, you have half a hand,
Yeah,
whatever. So,
and like people have to realize sometimes the quarterback has to put it in weird spots because those DBs are so intelligent that they watch so much film that they
oh,
know
yeah.
these routes, and so you got Sauce Gardner, you got guys out there that are so smart that these guys do have to do these crazy catches because they got to move their body around or finagle around because their hands are in that spot where that ball is supposed to be.
Just as a wide receiver knows, 5 steps break, the defender has watched so much film. They know the receiver's going to 5 step and break. And so then they try and cut in front of him, or you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so practicing the unpredicted is almost just as good as practicing the routes and the predicted stuff.
Yeah, like for example, I'll give a comment to the Pittsburgh Steelers. First game of the season last year, Fitzpatrick knew exactly what Joe Burrow was going to do. That first play, read the play perfectly, intercepted it, ran it back.
Yeah.
So it's just like these guys, they watch so much film, they scout you to where you have to do the unpredictable because these guys are so good.
Right. And that, I mean, and that's part of the reason why Mahomes is so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh
He's
yeah.
unpredictable.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey. That's the thing is, Travis, like he said all the time, he can change up his route and like he can run a certain way, and Mahomes just knows he's gonna be in that spot. They just
Yeah.
have that connection, and to have that connection is special. Same with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. You just have some of those, Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb back in the day. They had that same exact connection to where Rodgers is at the line, calls a play, but Cobb sees like, hey, in this
Yeah.
level, I know right here, and Rodgers doesn't even have to say anything. He just
And those
knows.
you see those old school films where like a quarterback will just do one of these, and the receiver will like just know.
Yep.
And I think I think it's weird. I feel like I'm talking like an old person now, but like it was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady who were just very like almost statue like, right?
Yes.
So smart, so mindful, knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that happened, they knew it was going to happen for the happen. So they could just stand up and throw. And then kind of the Rodgers era was in between,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're into the Mahomes and Burrow era that are kind of I feel like flipping the script of yeah they're smart, they know what they're doing, but they're adapting to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they
Mm-hmm.
have to be more unpredictable. They have to do things thinking on their feet. And in practice, they practice that with their team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you wouldn't think nowadays like you have 3 or 4 guys in the league that can do backwards throws, and they
Right.
actually do it in the game. I watched Burrow do it, Mahomes do it. I watched Matthew Stafford do it. So
And how many times, like on the
Rodgers,
playground or in the backyard, you try and do it, and it's
yeah,
like 10 feet the wrong
yeah.
way
The
because you
other
held on
team
to it
gets
for too
it.
long because your arm, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
Like it
yeah.
just doesn't work, and they're able to do that against professional athletes on the run in a split second, and it's accurate. I mean, obviously, it doesn't work all the time, but yeah,
No, I no, definitely. It's crazy. I know. So the training camps are crazy, and I think the Dallas Cowboys, with the Zeke situation, but now they have the center Zach Martin that wants to get paid, and that's a guy. Honestly, I would pay just because he's O line. He's an All Pro O lineman, been an All Pro lineman, been consistent. Um, that's a it's interesting watching all the like different training camp stuff and seeing like who's gonna get signed, when is this gonna happen. But all I keep hearing, I'm just gonna say this, all I keep hearing is about the Baltimore Ravens and how well they look on paper and how good they look on paper because they got Odell Beckham Jr., they got Dobbins coming back, Gus Edwards, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. This is what I have to say. I know Lamar Jackson's going to do Lamar Jackson things. There's no question about that. Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. I'm never going to question him. Odell Beckham Jr., when he's healthy, he's an elite wide receiver. He has not play. He didn't play all last year. He hasn't played since the Super Bowl. So you guys see what's happened in this last year. You got Zay Flowers, who's coming into the league. You guys see that transformation going into the league, and he's going into a division that is different than I think than other divisions. You're going into a division with the Browns, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, and I think at times that hits different and with the certain positions, and I think wide receiver is one of them, just because you're gonna get hit. It's a little there's a little extra that comes with some of that stuff. But Rashad Bateman last year wasn't healthy, and he didn't. I didn't see much from him last year. So yeah, they look good on paper. Everything looks good on paper. But the thing is, you got guys out there ranting and raving saying they're gonna just go ahead with the division. I don't see that. I don't see them just running away with the division, and that ticks me off because then people will then you got other people who are like, oh, the Bengals are division winners and you got to give them their respect, blah blah blah, until they lose it. And an old guy was on ESPN the other day and was just whining and groaning and moaning because Jalen Hurts was not listed as a top 5 QB, even though he just went to the Super Bowl. Okay, just moan and groan because he whined because and he's like, he was in the Super Bowl, he's got to be in the top 5. Meanwhile, the year before they showed the rankings, Joe Burrow led his team to the Super Bowl, but they still had him outside the top 5. No one batted an eye. So what's the
Yeah.
difference? That's the thing is, so we'll
Well,
see.
that's kind of my point I was trying to make earlier was a quarterback can be a top 5 player, can lead their team, but a quarterback can get to a Super Bowl without being a top 5 quarterback. It just is, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And also to, Odell Beckham Jr., on paper, he should help every single team he goes to. But I still think he's more of a distraction than a productive player. Like I just, he just can't. He's been on what, is this his 4th team? Giants, Bengals,
No, Giants,
or
Browns,
Browns. I
Rams.
mean,
Fourth Giants,
Rams.
Browns, Rams,
So
and
this
now
is his
Ravens.
4th team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if he was that prolific of a player and that good and got along with his team and coaches that well, why is he going through teams like that?
Mm-hmm. And he's not healthy. He doesn't stay healthy. He seems to
Yeah.
always be injured.
And like you said, when he is healthy, he probably, arguably, maybe, the number 1 receiver in the league. I mean, he makes incredible plays.
Yeah, he's unreal.
But doesn't stay healthy and just more of a distraction and I know we've talked before that, Lamar has dealt with some drama players before and they've gotten along well, but I just don't see Odell, being as successful as he should in the league.
Yeah, and I get the Ravens have a great defense. They always have a great defense. I mean, it's Baltimore. That I feel like that's a necessity in Baltimore is defense is first, and then everything else comes second. I think that's why. I mean, it took so long to freaking with Lamar. I would have gave a whole house to Lamar because I mean it's Lamar Jackson. I mean the dude does things that nobody else. I mean this guy's incredible, and but I just you look at that conference and as much as I despise the Cleveland Browns, I despise them. I can't stand them, but you can't count them out because you got Deshaun Watson, you got Nick Chubb, who I think is a top 3 running back in the league. And then you got Amari Cooper. I mean, you got and you got Myles Garrett. So you got guys. I mean, the Cleveland Browns aren't no joke. They're not a 0-16, 0-17 team. And
they're not the Browns that when we were growing up that we watched and just was like that was the gimme game.
Yeah, exactly. Brady Quinn isn't in the backfield and so and then obviously you got the Bengals. People forget what the Bengals did last year, and if you look at their second part of their schedule last year and their winning streak and who they beat, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bills. I mean, the list just goes. I mean, they weren't playing the powder puff teams of. That's the thing, and then you have the Steelers who their defense keeps them in games. You got guys like T.J. Watt, you got guys like Micah Fitzpatrick. Their defense is so tough that they keep them in games to where if Kenny Pickett has a decent game, if George Pickens makes that spectacular catch, if Najee Harris breaks out for 100 yards, they can win the game easily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing is when you have a defense like that. So that's why obviously I'm going to have the Bengals win the division, ain't no doubt. I picked the Bengals every year, even when freaking Andy Dalton was running the show. But so I'm going to be biased towards that way. But even if even if I wasn't a Bengals fan, I have the Browns and Ravens right neck and neck with each other. Like I have them neck and neck because, like I said, J.K. Dobbins, he's not been healthy. That's and now and the thing is that what I'm looking at with Baltimore this year, this is the first year Mark Andrews actually has competition in the target range. Mark Andrews was the number one target receiving wise these last few years. You know, obviously because he's a top, I consider him second best tight end in the league behind Travis Kelce. I have him just ahead of George Kittle now just because of what he's been able to do against the Bengals, unfortunately. But I think
I would put Kittle above him,
you'd
but
put Kittle.
he's definitely top. He's definitely top 5, hands down.
I have Kittle as 3. I just think 3 years ago Kittle would be up here with Travis Kelce at number 1. But this year, with him with having McCaffrey and Debo and all of them, I feel like Mark Andrews is at that point. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kittle's 3 for me.
I mean, it's
yeah,
minute. It's
yeah.
pulling hairs at this point. So
I'm interested to see though what happens though with Mark Andrews this year, just because now you got Odell, you got Zay, you got Rashad Bateman. That's going to be wanting these receptions because again, everyone's having all this hype about all these receivers. You're going to have to do something with them. Like these aren't like Odell aren't the team to block. That's for dang sure.
Right. And that's where it could be an issue because Andrews, I mean, as a tight end, has basically been their number one target, like you said. And if he's still that, what's Odell going to do? He's going to throw a fit? Or is Andrews going to step back and say, all right, I'll be a blocking tight end, you know? I mean, he's been in the league for some years, so maybe he wants to just say, "Hey, I'll be there when you need me, but I'll block if you want me to."
Yeah, that's the thing.
If it's for the better of the team, you know.
I don't know. It is, but it's hard when you're getting those touchdowns and you're getting all the receptions, all the love for all the years. It's hard to. I mean, you see it all the time with those big time players. It's hard to take a step back at times because you're so used to being that guy, and you don't want to admit that it might be that time to take a step back, but
right.
But I think the one thing that's really I don't want to say what kind of shocked me this training camp or this off season, but it's been kind of different. Aaron Rodgers, okay, and I know you're an Aaron Rodgers fan. Usually there's always something around Rodgers. Like, he went to the cabin and all that. And, the hair, he's out with the hot model. There's always some type of TV entertainment around him.
Yeah.
This offseason, there hasn't been none. And the only thing I've really heard from him was this interview today where he's like, when Sean Payton's bad-mouthing, the Denver's last head coach and the crappy job he did as the football coach and whatnot. But the way Aaron Rodgers defends him, and he says, don't you be talking that crap about my coaches, about my team. And just the way he handled that, like, people had questioned, like, is Rodgers going to feel the same way about this team that he did about the Packers all these years? Is he coming – the way he answered that question, the way he's like brought himself, I feel like he's 1,000% in on this team, and I feel like this team is going to be scary good. I'm interested. This might be like the first year I actually watched Hard Knocks all the way through, besides back from the Shannon Sharp Baltimore Ravens back in the day. That one I actually watched all the way through because that one was freaking hilarious. But they're going to be a scary team, and I really do hope the Jets make a big run because I want to see them dethrone the Bills out of that division. I want to see them be the divisional winner and get that love because I think it would just be really cool to hear the New York Jets be a playoff contender, a Super Bowl contender. When's the last time you've heard that?
Yeah. That's tough to respond to.
Is this
Rooting for Aaron Rodgers for so many years at Green Bay. I mean, I don't want to see him fail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still think. I mean, he's always his entire career has gotten a lot of flack from the media.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Partly because he has always had a chip on his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
But partly because he always has just been honest with media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he especially later in his career, he's like, "This is how it is. This is what it is." And a lot of people took that as like harsh, him being a dick, him being rude, him having a chip on his shoulder. But it's like, I've been saying it for a few years now. Like, I wish more athletes would just be honest and not give the cliche bullshit answers that they're bred to give. And bias, whatever. Like when he started going on the Pat McAfee show, like I loved it because he was it was kind of like fireside chats. You know, he was just sitting there saying what he wanted to say, and you were actually getting an honest look at him. Now, on the flip side, do I think he started a little drama with the whole the black retreat where he's in darkness for 4 days, and he did the ayahuasca and all that, sorry, do I think that was a little drama? Yes, but
What
for
about
the
the
most part, I think he was just.
the
What's that?
vaccination? What about the vaccination situation?
Yeah, I
The
mean,
drama.
that was, I think, a little drama too, but at the same, like, I think that was drama because he knew he could do it how he wanted to do it and not break any rules, so he did it. And
Okay.
that's where I think where some of the drama comes from him is he's very he's very thoughtful. So, and if you're going to try and challenge him and say you have to do this, he's going to say, "Do I actually have to do this, or is there a loophole?" So I think that's where some of the did he create drama? Yes, but he's a very thoughtful person and he's very smart and intelligent. And so it's kind of, I think where
he's
a lot of
very
his drama
intelligent.
comes from is, yeah, I think, yeah, and that's where he does create it. Like, I'm not,
I think he
but
likes some of it. I think he does it on purpose a little bit because he has a personality. That's the thing, is he has a personality
right.
to where I think just some of it he just likes to. I feel like I feel like he's the type of guy
He
who's an
likes to know that
instigator at
he could be
times.
he likes to know that he can be the guy to be like, yeah, I figured it out. Like, say what
Right,
you
yeah.
want, but I figured it out. You know?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I feel like he's the type. I feel like he's the guy at the bar that instigate, like, hey, that he's talking shit over. Would you put up with that? I don't think I would if I were
Yeah.
you. Like, I feel like he'd be that type of guy. Then he'd talk. Then he'd go over as it's getting ready to fight. He'd be like, all right, guys, now let's not do this. Let's talk about it like this way. We'll work about it like. And then that's how I feel like he would just work his way around people to where I feel like he could easily just work his magic the way he can control.
Yeah.
But no, I think we'll wrap it up on this one. My as you can hear, my dog's whining in the background, running back and forth because she's not getting her attention because I'm doing a podcast. Yes, I know. I hear you. We all hear you. So, but we thought with the running back situation and with it being training camp, we thought this would be a little interesting topic to talk about.
It'll be interesting after this Saturday too, if our opinions are the same or different after we draft.
Yeah. So for all you don't know, is as I run a fantasy football league. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Beers, and we're actually having a big draft party this coming Saturday. And so it'll be interesting to see how these picks go, and who gets drafted, who's going to be the number one draft pick, and whatnot. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm hoping by then Dalvin Cook gets signed by then. Then it's going to give me more confidence of like when I can and stuff. But I like that it's like that second, third week of training camp because it's like in the middle and to where people are signed, but then there's still a little bit of gray area to where you still Because then I have like another friend that does the draft like the day of the first game. So it's just
It's like the Jello of the NFL. It's solidified but not all the way.
yeah. There you go. There you go. But yeah, till next time, follow us, like us on Facebook. We got a Facebook page, Higginsanity Podcast live stream. Dan, you wanna hit him with the rest?
Yep, we're on dansanity@gmail.com, which is the number one, dansanity@gmail.com. We also have Twitter. We also have YouTube. Like us, subscribe. Just tell us your thoughts, opinions, ideas. We just want to grow, gain some followers. So, until next time, deuces.